We've already established that learning strategy is part of an HR or human capital strategy, which in turn is an integral part of an HR business strategy. Everything is entwined in one complete system. But any organisation that wants to continuously improve has to continuously learn. And this scale mirrors the HR maturity scale in the HR strategy module. So it has on one end of the scale a very reactive approach to training. This would often involve sending people on training courses without too much thought about what is expected of them afterwards. Some organisations are slightly more mature and see training and development as an ongoing process, so we'll have things like performance development plans. Other organisations who are further up the scale know the difference between training and development, which are inputs, and learning, which is an output. And the best organisations understand that the only way to do this, to get the most out of everybody's potential, is to have the whole organisation learning. This is a whole system approach to the subject of learning. Now, along this scale, there are various stages of development or evolution. At stage 1, a very immature organisation doesn't use the word learning and actually just runs courses on an ad hoc basis, maybe has a menu of courses which people can choose from. It does whatever people want. It's all about keeping the cost down, so the average number of bums on seats is important in these immature organisations. At stage 2, they employ a professional person who knows that all training programs should at least have some training objectives. There should be a check on individual suitability for the training. There should be a basic training needs analysis, but they probably wouldn't have many systems in place because the organisation is not mature enough to know that it's systems that make a real difference in learning. Nevertheless, organisations evolve, and some get to stage 3, where they start to have effective training management from effective training managers. These are people whose expertise is valued, who start to put a basic training system in place that says some people can go on one type of training and other people can't. They start to distinguish between some candidates being suitable for certain development and others who aren't suitable for it. So it's a discriminating approach to training and development, and it moves away from sending everybody on courses. In the middle of this scale, there is a thing called the evaluation hurdle. This basically says that up until this point, the input model of training and development has not been measured in terms of its outputs. And this is an education that both training departments, employees and executive teams have to go through to understand that training and development cannot just have money thrown at it if the organisation wants to get some return on that money. It has to move to a much more sophisticated approach which accepts that learning is the name of the game, and so it needs in place a stage 4 type business person who works in human resource development. We might call them business partners or learning and development business partners, and they will make sure there's an evaluation system in place, and all learning goes through this system to check that what people are trying to learn is actually aligned with what the organisation needs to know. These people will not be servants to line managers because they understand the business and they're treated as equal partners, and they'll be saying to line managers that they need to do more themselves to develop their staff. This is a much more mature organisation from a learning perspective. Over time, the organisation moves through a transitional period where it stops looking at just operational needs and thinks about the future. It knows it needs to have a learning system in place. Courses will be very limited, maybe especially limited to technical courses, and managers will have started to develop themselves as coaches with the help from the learning and development team probably. Stage 6 is the last stage on this scale. Although this scale has no actual end, it goes on forever because learning is always a continuous process. The organisation now as a whole is so mature that everybody in the organisation shares their knowledge. There is a culture of wanting and willingness to share knowledge, and this means that anybody who's got any intellectual capital will find there is an opportunity to use that at work. And if they want to learn, then any support to their learning will be individually centred. So ideas like e-learning will become very, very flexible and adaptable to individual needs. This is the complete maturity scale. and it will only be put in place if it's part of a learning strategy.